this can be a variety. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Indians didn't do one or the other. Their chief food was the squash, the bean, and the corn. And they also raised sunflowers for sunflower oil and a multitude of others. The band kind of disappeared. The Senecas, or what now is the Seneca Nation of Iroquois, they were warlike, and so were the Hurons. The Hurons were bad. They wouldn't fight with just anybody. They just picked somebody out, and that's a battle forever. They were rather crude that way. But sooner or later, they lost out, and they had to move west. And the only place we find them now is up in Canada, a couple of small groups of them, and there is a wine reservation in Oklahoma. So you can see out of New York State, they were pushed to quite a ways from where they originated. I'm going to turn it over to Tony. He has some of the things that some of the Indians made, not necessarily the Wyandots or the Hurons or Senecas or anyone.
Okay, I'll start out by saying, Nawiskanano, which means more or less, my friends, I'm glad to see you here. I'm not full-blooded, you know that. My mother was Seneca, my father was Italian, a heck of a mix. When I was younger, I found out very quickly that I got along better on the reservation than I did at home. So I spent my time down there. And Oklahoma, who are not Sioux, but are Cheyenne, and they speak Sioux to me to tangle me up, so I'm starting to get to the Sioux, see. But grandmother made a request of me in Seneca, and I ignored her. And I didn't think nothing of it, and about 3 days later, she had a leather strap that she was smelling. And this was getting my curiosity. Why is she smelling this strap? So she finally asked me would I like the smell of it, and I went up and she slapped me across the cheek. Okay, she didn't forget. Their way of punishing really was complete ignoring you, completely. Now, we brought some ghost bread, and if in them days you had ghost bread 7 days a week. Okay, and it did not, like today they put pineapple or something in it, then it was just the plain bread. And she would always keep by the stove, the cook stove, the wood stove, a bucket of grease. This is what you got in your ghost bread. It might be somebody's got off a deer or off a pig or even chicken fat. And the bad thing was it's soaked in, so no matter what you did, you had to eat it. Okay? So one day we took this bucket, and Gilbert and I, we took it out into the woods. And it was like she had a telephone. Nobody spoke to us. I mean, if we went in at night, see, we didn't have radios down there, and there was very little electricity. So at night, we'd all go in and lay on the wooden floor and listen to stories. Okay, this was our way of enjoying the evening. And we'd go in to lay down, and everybody'd get up and go somewhere else. Now, there ain't many rooms in them little shacks. I think there were 3 rooms in that little shack. So there was a constant moving around, see. But when they decided we had enough of the punishment, then they just welcomed us back, and we were taken right into their care again, and nobody said anything about it, all right? This outfit I'm wearing is not of the Plains Indians of this area, okay? It'd be kind of hard to run through the Allegheny Mountains or something with a big headdress on, okay? This is strictly Plains. What the Senecas wore, they're the Iroquois Nation, okay? Everybody says, are you Iroquois Indian? There are no Iroquois Indians. I don't care what anybody says to you. There are no Iroquois. It's a Seneca, it's an Iroquois Nation made up of 5 tribes, okay? The Senecas, the Cayugas, the Canandaigua, the Oneidas, and the Mohawks. Okay, they make up the Iroquois Nation. Then in about 1720 or so, the Tuscaroras were driven out of South Carolina, and they come up and were added to the 6th tribe of the Confederacy, okay? But what the Senecas wore was a hat, something like this, and it was called a gistui, which means real hat, okay? And it was usually lined with bark or sticks to keep from getting hit with a tomahawk or something, all right? So that's what they wore in this area. These are more or less Plains Indians, like horn bonnets, and you can see what a beating these are taking and moving them all through the countryside, but Okay, but these are strictly plains, all right? They had the bonnet like Wally's got before the horse came. When the horse came, they added the trailer to them, all right? These are Plains Indian. Now, these are my burial moccasins, so I haven't worn them. These were made for me by a Cheyenne out in Clinton, Oklahoma. And this beadwork, if you do some investigating, you'll find her great-grandfather was a man by the name of Standing on the Clouds or Touch of Clouds. Okay? He was a scout for the United States Army. After he rebelled against the United States because they took his land and were going to ship him away, even though he had helped them, they put him in irons and sent him on a railroad car to Florida. But when he left, this pattern of beadwork is the very same that he had on his moccasins, so I'm pretty proud to have them. And if you look at this woman is in her, well, when she made these, she was in her 80s, and this is really thin. But she put the beadwork on between the thicknesses of leather so that the strings don't show on the insides, okay? So if you want to look at them, you know, you're welcome.
Powder out of whatever they found there. This is a medicine man's bowl, and I've got the incorrect pestle for it, but I guess it's all right. They would put leaves or whatever the cure was, whatever the medicine man was going to use. Say you had an earache. He'd grind up a potion in here. He'd put it in a pipe similar to this, light it, then it would take a suck on that pipe and blow through a quill into your ear. Now it really worked because I've had it done myself. And it seemed to deaden the pain, any pain that was there, and may have medication too. This bowl here, I've never seen one like it since I found this one. But you can see it's been used for grinding. And would you pass that around? Okay? And then this one right behind it. I'm going to ask Tony to talk just a little bit on this cradle board. And
well, one of the things that the Indians learned right away was, first of all, how many of you older than you guys here have ever seen a fire ground? You know, when you go into Allington, you got that straight run all the way to Conowongo Valley. Right. Well, before, when you get to the Four Corners, there's a little store used to be on the right. If you go right straight through, you'll see these gas or oil drums out in the field. If you look down, go down there and look towards the left corner, you'll see a big round black spot. Okay, that's a fire ground. And what they did, I found all kind of arrowheads there, but what they did, they would build this fire, and then they would camp like 4 or 5 miles away from it. The fire was to draw the enemy there, so he'd think they were camped there, okay? And one of the things they had to do, Indian children had to learn to shut up. You couldn't cry. This was very important, because if you cried, the enemy would know right where you were camped. So what they would do, even at birth, when the baby started to cry, you see in the movie where the baby's crying, they're all laughing, they're happy. This didn't happen. The mother would immediately pinch their nose and hold her hand over their mouth, and the baby would, of course, lose her breath, and she would release it, and if they started to cry again, she'd do the same thing, okay? Now, if a lot of times it just didn't work, they would take this child in their cradle boards, and they would take them out into the woods and hang them on a tree and leave them. And then